Hi, my name is Brenda, and I am 29 years old. I live in Houston, Texas, and work as a healthcare administrator. My life may look stable from the outside, steady career, marriage, family dinners, but behind that polished surface, my world was far from perfect. When I first married Jason, I truly believed we would build a beautiful life together. He was charming, supportive, and always said he was proud of my ambitions. His mother, Barbara, however, was a different story from the beginning. She often made passive-aggressive remarks, suggesting that a woman's true place was at home, raising children, not managing a team at a healthcare facility. But I worked hard for my career. Long nights, countless sacrifices, and years of dedication had finally started to pay off. My job wasn't just a paycheck, it was my passion. I loved overseeing hospital operations, improving patient care, and leading my team to deliver the best healthcare services possible. At first, Jason seemed to admire my work ethic. Or maybe I just wanted to believe that. Over time, however, I began noticing subtle changes. His compliments grew less frequent. His support started to feel more like tolerance. And Barbara's disapproval only grew louder. Yet I pushed forward, hoping that with time, they would both see that I could balance both my career and family life. I thought I could prove that a woman doesn't have to choose between personal success and marriage. But deep down, I ignored the growing tension that was silently building beneath our roof. Everything finally reached its breaking point on our second wedding anniversary. That was the night everything changed forever. The evening of our second anniversary arrived. I had been looking forward to this night for weeks, hoping it would be a beautiful memory we could cherish. Jason had made a reservation at one of Houston's finest restaurants, a quiet, elegant place with soft lighting, soft music, and a romantic atmosphere. I had been promoted earlier that day to senior healthcare administrator, a position I had dreamed of for years. I wanted this anniversary dinner to be the perfect moment to share my achievement with Jason and, of course, with Barbara, who had insisted on joining us. As we sat at the table, sipping wine and waiting for our entrees, I finally gathered the courage to share my news. My heart was racing, but I smiled brightly. "I have some exciting news," I said, looking at both of them. "Today, I got promoted to senior healthcare administrator." For a moment, there was silence. I expected smiles, maybe even a little applause. But instead, Barbara's face instantly darkened. She set her glass down sharply and glared at me with thinly veiled disgust. "Is that really something to celebrate?" she said, her voice cold. "You're focusing on this career nonsense while your biological clock is ticking. When do you plan to give us grandchildren? Or is being your husband's equal now more important than being his wife?" I felt my cheeks flush with heat. Jason stayed silent, avoiding my gaze, making my heart sink even further. "Barbara," I said, trying to stay calm, "I can handle both my career and family. This promotion is something I've worked so hard for. I was hoping you could be proud of me." Jason finally spoke, but his voice was thin, hesitant. "Maybe Mom has a point, Brenda. You've been so busy. Maybe it's time we start thinking about what's really important for our family." I stared at him in disbelief. This wasn't the man I married. The Jason I loved used to encourage me, but now he sounded like a stranger echoing his mother's poisonous words. "This is important for our family," I said firmly, trying to hold back the lump forming in my throat. "My career is not the enemy." Barbara leaned in closer, her voice full of venom. "A real wife puts her family first. Not her job. Not herself." The air grew heavy. The romantic dinner I had imagined had turned into a courtroom where I was the one being judged. Jason's face stiffened, his voice turning cold. "You're being selfish, Brenda. Marriage is about sacrifice. And you don't seem willing to make any." My hands trembled slightly as I set down my fork. "Sacrifice doesn't mean giving up who I am," I whispered, but I could feel my voice starting to shake. The tension at the table had reached its peak. But I had no idea that the worst was yet to come. Jason's eyes darkened. His jaw clenched tightly, as if he had completely lost control of himself. I could see the boiling anger rising inside him. "Enough, Brenda," he suddenly shouted, slamming his palm on the table, making the silverware rattle. Several heads from nearby tables turned toward us, startled by his outburst. I froze. My heart was pounding in my chest, my breath caught in my throat. I couldn't believe how far this had escalated, and so publicly. "You always think you're better than everyone else," Jason hissed. "Your stupid promotion, your endless work hours. You don't care about this marriage. You care only about yourself." I tried to reason, my voice shaking, but still calm. "Jason, please, this isn't the place to." Before I could finish my sentence, Jason stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Then, without any hesitation, he swung his hand across my face. The sharp sound of his palm slapping my cheek echoed through the entire restaurant. The sting was instant, fiery, and humiliating. I gasped as my head jerked sideways from the force. The entire restaurant went silent. I could feel dozens of eyes staring at us in shock and horror. Tears instantly filled my eyes as I pressed my hand to my burning cheek, unable to fully process what had just happened. But Jason wasn't done. As I tried to pull myself together, he suddenly reached forward, grabbing a fistful of my hair. Without mercy, he yanked my head backward and violently dragged me off my chair onto the floor. The pain in my scalp was excruciating, my heart racing wildly. I heard people gasping, some even shouting. "Stop it," someone yelled from another table. "Call the police." I could barely move as Jason pulled me several feet across the polished marble floor of the restaurant. My vision blurred with tears, my body frozen in terror and humiliation. Barbara stood there, silently watching, without even trying to stop her son. Her cold, satisfied expression cut even deeper than Jason's violent grip. Finally, one of the restaurant staff ran toward us. "Sir, let go of her. The police are on their way." At that moment, Jason let go of my hair and stood over me, breathing heavily, as though still filled with rage. I remained on the floor, shaking, my face flushed with pain and shame. My world had shattered right there, in front of strangers, on what was supposed to be our anniversary. This was no longer just a toxic relationship. This was abuse. And I knew, something inside me broke that night. I would never allow myself to be treated like this again. After the chaos in the restaurant, the police arrived within minutes. They questioned Jason, the staff, and the witnesses. Multiple people had already reported the assault. Jason was arrested on the spot, handcuffed right there in front of everyone, while Barbara stood nearby with a mixture of shock and indignation on her face. I sat on a chair in the corner of the restaurant, shaking. My face still stung, and my scalp throbbed where Jason had yanked my hair. The paramedics checked me and confirmed I was physically stable, but the emotional pain was far worse than any bruise or soreness. The ride home was quiet and heavy. The police escorted me safely, and once inside my apartment, I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. My mind kept replaying the horrifying scene over and over again. It was nearly midnight when I finally reached for my phone. My hands trembled as I scrolled through my contacts. I needed someone. I needed Benjamin. He had always been there, my childhood friend, my safe place when life felt like too much. We had grown up together, and even though our lives took different paths, we had always remained close. He was the one person who truly understood me. I pressed call. After just a couple of rings, his voice answered softly, filled with concern. "Brenda? Are you okay? What's wrong?" The second I heard his voice, my emotions finally broke free. My tears returned, pouring down uncontrollably. "Ben," I sobbed. "Jason, he hit me. In public. In front of everyone. And he dragged me by my hair." There was a moment of heavy silence on the line before Benjamin responded, his voice suddenly sharp and protective. "He what? Where are you? Are you safe now?" "I'm home. The police, they arrested him. Don't worry. I'm coming over. Stay right there." Within 20 minutes, Benjamin was at my door. The moment I opened it, he pulled me into a gentle, comforting embrace. I clung to him, crying into his chest, finally able to breathe as his familiar scent and steady heartbeat brought a small sense of calm to my shattered world. After several minutes, Benjamin led me to the couch and sat beside me, holding my hand tightly. His eyes searched mine, full of worry but also determination. "Brenda, listen to me," he said firmly. "You cannot stay married to that man. You need to file for divorce and you need to press charges. This cannot happen again." I wiped my tears, my voice still shaking. I know, but it all happened so fast. I don't even know where to start." He gently squeezed my hand. "Start by letting me help you. We'll find a good lawyer. You don't have to face this alone. I promise." At that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't just about what Jason had done. It was about reclaiming my life and finally choosing myself. The next morning, I woke up feeling drained, but strangely clearer. The fear was still there, the pain still fresh, but Benjamin's words echoed in my head. "You don't have to face this alone." As I sipped my coffee in silence, Benjamin returned with a folder in his hands. He had spent the early morning hours making calls and researching legal options. "I found someone," he said gently. "Her name is Megan. She's one of the best divorce attorneys in the city. She's handled cases like yours before, domestic abuse, high-conflict divorces. I've already scheduled a consultation for you this afternoon." I looked at him, my eyes welling up again, but this time with gratitude. "Ben, I don't know what I would have done without you." "You don't need to thank me, Brenda," he replied softly. "I'm just doing what any real friend would do." A few hours later, Benjamin drove me to Megan's law office. The building was tall and modern, the kind of place that instantly gave you the sense that they meant business. Inside, Megan greeted us personally. She was in her mid-40s, dressed professionally, but with a warmth that immediately put me at ease. "Brenda, please have a seat," she said, offering a kind smile. "Benjamin has already filled me in briefly, but I'd like to hear everything directly from you." I took a deep breath and began to tell my story. Everything from Barbara's constant interference to Jason's growing coldness, and finally, the horrifying attack at the restaurant. Megan listened intently, taking notes, occasionally nodding with empathy. When I finished, she looked me straight in the eyes. "You've made the right decision to come here, Brenda. This is not just a simple divorce. This is a serious domestic violence case. We'll file for divorce immediately, but we'll also pursue criminal charges for the assault." "Criminal charges?" I whispered. "Yes," Megan said firmly. "He assaulted you in public, with dozens of witnesses. We have more than enough to build a strong case. And regarding his mother Barbara, based on your description, we can also investigate her involvement for enabling and encouraging his abusive behavior." Benjamin placed his hand gently on mine. "We're going to fight this all the way. You're not alone." I nodded slowly, feeling a growing sense of strength rise within me. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't drowning in fear. I was preparing to take back control. Megan leaned forward and added, "Brenda, from this point forward, you don't speak directly to Jason or his mother. Everything goes through me. My team will handle all legal communications and filings. You focus on healing. Let us fight for your justice." Her words were like armor wrapping around me. For the first time, I felt hope. The very next day, Megan's office moved swiftly. Her legal team gathered witness statements from the restaurant, several guests, staff members, even the restaurant manager who had personally seen Jason strike and drag me. Surveillance footage from the restaurant clearly showed everything that happened that night. It was undeniable evidence. Megan explained everything step by step, making sure I fully understood what we were doing. "We're filing 2 separate charges," she said confidently during our meeting. "The first is your divorce petition, which includes grounds for abuse. The second is a criminal case against Jason for assault and public violence." She paused, glancing at Benjamin, who sat by my side, his hand resting reassuringly over mine. "And for Barbara," Megan continued, "we are filing charges for aiding and abetting domestic violence, emotional harassment, and obstruction. Her active participation and repeated psychological manipulation will not be ignored." Hearing those words made my chest tighten, but not with fear this time. It was a strange mixture of relief and courage. "Good," I finally whispered. She deserves to be held accountable too. Megan smiled approvingly. That's the spirit, Brenda. They both will answer for what they've done. Over the following days, formal papers were filed. Jason and Barbara were officially served. Both hired their own legal teams and, as expected, began trying to downplay their actions. Jason's attorney argued that the incident was a private marital dispute blown out of proportion, while Barbara's lawyer claimed that her words were misunderstood and taken out of context. But Megan was ready for all of it. She gathered every detail: witness testimonies, video recordings, my medical reports from the paramedics, police statements from the night of the assault, evidence of Barbara's repeated interference in my marriage. Every piece painted a clear and horrifying picture of how they had both tried to control and destroy me. Throughout these stressful weeks, Benjamin never left my side. He came with me to every meeting, reassured me whenever my anxiety spiked, and simply listened whenever I needed to vent my fears. One evening, after another long day at Megan's office, Benjamin walked me to my car. The night air was cool, and the city lights shimmered around us. "You're doing amazing, Brenda," he said softly. "You're stronger than you realize." I looked up at him, feeling a warmth inside me that was different than before, a quiet, comforting kind of connection that had started to grow between us, even in the middle of all this pain. "Thank you, Ben," I whispered. "I couldn't have gotten this far without you. And you won't have to go through any of this alone," he replied. "Not now. Not ever." As I sat in my car that night, I realized something powerful. For the first time, my abusers were finally the ones feeling fear, not me. The courtroom battle was coming. And I was ready. The day of the trial arrived. As I stood outside the courthouse, a mixture of nerves and determination swirled inside me. Benjamin stood beside me, offering a reassuring smile. "We've got this," he whispered. Megan met us at the entrance, carrying a thick folder of evidence. "Everything is lined up perfectly, Brenda," she said confidently. "Stay calm. The truth is on our side." Inside the courtroom, Jason sat across from me at the defendant's table, wearing a cold, arrogant expression. Beside him, Barbara sat stiff and bitter, as though she still believed none of this was her fault. Their lawyers whispered strategies to them, but I noticed the nervous flicker in their eyes. The prosecutor presented the case methodically. Surveillance footage clearly showed Jason slapping me and dragging me by my hair across the restaurant floor. Multiple witnesses testified to the public assault. Paramedics and police officers described my condition that night. Megan played Barbara's recorded voicemails, where she pressured me to quit my job, mocked my career, and encouraged Jason to put his wife in her place. The evidence was overwhelming. Jason's defense tried to argue that he was under emotional stress, blaming me for pushing him too far. Barbara's defense claimed she was only giving motherly advice and that family disagreements should not be criminalized. But the judge wasn't buying any of it. "You both used manipulation, intimidation, and physical violence to control the victim," the judge stated firmly. "This court does not tolerate domestic violence, nor those who enable it." When the verdict was read, my breath caught in my throat. Jason was found guilty of felony domestic assault and public endangerment. He was sentenced to 4 years in state prison with no possibility of early parole. The courtroom fell silent as Jason's face finally cracked. The confidence drained from him completely. Then Barbara's sentence followed. She was found guilty of aiding and abetting domestic violence, coercion, and psychological harassment. Barbara was sentenced to 2 years in county jail, along with mandatory counseling and strict probation following her release. There was no negotiation, no plea deals, no sympathy. They both received full punishment for their actions. Finally, justice was served. I felt my knees weaken slightly, but Benjamin's hand on my back kept me steady. Megan leaned in with a gentle smile and whispered, "We did it." As Jason was handcuffed and taken away, his cold stare followed me. But for the first time, I felt nothing but peace. The fear was gone. The chains were broken. The weeks following the trial felt like a new world opening before me. For the first time in years, I woke up without the weight of fear sitting on my chest. No more controlling voices. No more walking on eggshells. I was finally free. With Jason and Barbara both serving their sentences, I shifted my focus toward rebuilding my life, not just for myself, but for others who had faced similar pain. The experience had changed me, but it had also revealed a new purpose. During a quiet evening over coffee, I shared my idea with Benjamin. "I want to start something," I said softly. "A program for women who've been through what I've been through. A mentorship organization where they can find support, guidance, and strength." Benjamin's face lit up instantly. "That's an incredible idea, Brenda. You would be perfect for it." I smiled, feeling a warmth inside I hadn't felt in a long time. I want them to know they're not alone, that they can still have a future, no matter how dark things once were. With Benjamin's encouragement, I started laying the foundation for my new organization, New Dawn, Women's Healthcare Mentorship and Recovery. Through my healthcare background, I was able to create partnerships with clinics, counselors, and local support groups. I reached out to women who had faced abusive relationships, offering workshops, job training, and emotional support. The first day I walked into the small office space we'd rented downtown, I felt a deep sense of pride. This was my second chance. And it wasn't built on anyone else's approval, it was mine. Benjamin became my biggest supporter, not just emotionally, but also helping with the business side, offering his own expertise and time. "You're changing lives, Brenda," he told me one evening as we worked late into the night. "I hope you know how inspiring you are." I looked at him, realizing how deeply our bond had grown throughout this journey. His support had never wavered. In my darkest moments, he had stood by me, never asking for anything, only offering strength. For the first time, I started to feel something more than just gratitude toward Benjamin. Something tender, something real. As the months passed, New Dawn grew stronger. More women joined, more partnerships formed, and every day I witnessed stories of courage and survival that reminded me why I had chosen this path. But something else was growing, too, something I could no longer ignore. My feelings for Benjamin. His loyalty, his steady presence, his kind heart, he had never once faltered. Through every storm, he had been my anchor. And now, our friendship had quietly blossomed into something far deeper. One evening, Benjamin invited me to dinner at a cozy little rooftop restaurant overlooking the Houston skyline. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. As we sat across from each other, I noticed he seemed slightly nervous, which was rare for him. "Brenda," he began gently, his voice warm but serious, "I've been wanting to tell you something for a while now." My heart fluttered. "You don't have to say anything if you're not ready," I started, but he raised his hand softly to stop me.
"No.
"I need to say this." He took a deep breath, his eyes locking with mine. "When you called me that night, when you told me what Jason had done, I made a promise to myself. I promised I would protect you, stand by you, and never let you feel alone again. But somewhere along the way, I realized this isn't just about protecting you anymore." He paused, his voice trembling slightly. "I love you, Brenda, and I have for a long time. You are the strongest, kindest woman I've ever known. If you feel even a fraction of what I feel for you, I want to build a future together, one full of respect, love, and peace." For a moment, I sat frozen, tears welling up in my eyes. But this time, they were happy tears. Without hesitation, I reached across the table and held his hands tightly. "I love you too, Benjamin," I whispered. "You've shown me what real love looks like. And yes, I want to build that future with you." His eyes lit up with pure joy. Then he slowly pulled out a small velvet box and opened it. Inside was a beautiful, simple engagement ring. "Will you marry me?" he asked softly. I smiled through my tears.
Yes.
1,000 times yes. The city lights twinkled around us as we embraced, sealing the beginning of our brand new chapter, one built on healing, respect, and true love. The day of our wedding arrived beneath a perfect spring sky. The venue was simple yet elegant, a peaceful garden filled with fresh blooms and close friends. It was nothing like my first wedding, which now felt like a distant, broken memory. This time, there was no fear, no pressure, only love. As I walked down the aisle toward Benjamin, my heart swelled. He stood there with a warm smile, waiting for me, not to control me, not to change me, but simply to love me for who I was. The ceremony was intimate, filled with laughter, gentle tears, and the quiet understanding that we had both come through something heavy to find something beautiful. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, and Benjamin gently kissed me, I felt like my soul had finally exhaled after years of holding its breath. In the months that followed, New Dawn continued to grow beyond anything I had imagined. We expanded into multiple locations, providing mentorship, career counseling, therapy, and legal guidance for women leaving abusive situations. I regularly spoke at healthcare conferences, sharing my personal story of survival and empowerment. My message was simple but powerful. Your worth is not defined by anyone but yourself. You deserve love. You deserve respect. And you are never alone. Benjamin remained my partner in every way, personally and professionally, offering his strength and heart every step of the way. Sometimes, late at night, I would sit quietly and think back to that horrible night at the restaurant, how my life had shattered, how I had been dragged across that cold marble floor. But instead of pain, those memories now reminded me of how far I had come. I was no longer that woman on the ground. I was standing tall,
Free. Whole.
and finally, truly happy. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories like this to life. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Thank you for watching.